Hello and welcome to Seattle City Makers. I'm your host, Jon Scholes. Well, Happy New Year, everybody, and hope your 2025 is getting off to a great start. We're entering our fourth season of Seattle City Makers, and we kick off this season with a terrific conversation with the newly appointed executive director of the Pike Place Market, Rachel Ligtenberg. She joined the market in October following a 30-year career with REI. She held a number of leadership roles with REI, including as vice president of retail operations, and helped spearhead a lot of their growth around the country and growth of their flagship stores, including the terrific and iconic Seattle flagship, as well as the stores in New York City and Washington, D.C. Most recently, she held the position of president of sports and outdoor and people and culture at NetRush, an e-commerce platform based down in Vancouver, B.C., and is now at the helm of the 100-plus-year-old incredible city within a city, the Pike Place Market, our just wonderful treasure in downtown. We sit down and discuss her career at REI and how she found her way to the market, her relationship to the Pike Place Market before taking the job, the market's new vision and master plan that she will be charged with implementing. The Market Public Development Authority recently adopted a 50-year master plan for the market, and we discuss the key components and goals and strategies within that master plan. And we get her take on the long-running debate around cars or no cars on Pike Place, the street that runs just in front of the market. That debate is alive and well again in our city, with some proposing that it should be closed entirely to cars and others with other perspectives. And she gives us hers and the approach that she'll take around that conversation and that issue. So I hope you enjoy my conversation with Rachel Ligtenberg, the new executive director of the Pike Place Market. Thank you for doing this. And coming over and making time. And,
absolutely. Thrilled.
And we're thrilled that you're in this role and leading this incredible gem in our downtown. I call it the city within the city.
Indeed.
Does it feel that way to you, a little city in the city?
It does. And both a city within a city, but also like this magical, beautiful organism that has its, this incredible life of its own. So it does feel like that.
And you're a couple months in now. You started November 1, is that right?
Yes, exactly. So 2 months in.
What drew you to the role?
Wow, it's I've always looked at roles like these, complex nonprofit roles. And after my 30-year career with REI and a lifetime of community and board service, there came a point, this is a little over a year ago, where I actually did a fairly deep amount of introspection. And the outcome of that was this one-pager that was really around sort of dream role. And it was guided by a Gil Gibran quote, "Work is love made visible." And then the next part of that a little bit surprised me is I wrote, "I'm looking to step into a large, complex nonprofit as CEO." And then went into all this detail about, what would be those components. And so from that moment forward, I just started to really hone my attention and focus on, this is the kind of work that I want to do for the balance of my life. True work of community, true work of service. And and then here I am.
Did they find you or you find them?
Well, a little more of being found in that a couple of dear executive past colleagues at REI recommended me for it before I knew it was live. And so forever, a thanks to Wilma Wallace and Laura Swap, who incredible humans who found the executive recruiter and shared with her, you have to talk with Rachel. And so that just kicked off that about 4.5-month process. And it was truly a dreamy process. Interestingly, I was recommended simultaneously for 3 other roles, and they're all the same. They're all like CEO of nonprofits.
Complex nonprofits, yeah.
And the hiring committee, which was half of the council, PDA's council, they just did a remarkable, remarkable job. So every engagement with both the executive search firm and the hiring committee I mean, they were just incredible. The whole process, the engagement, the presence, the care, the stewardship. And so, I fell in love with the market in 1992, and then I really further fell in love with the opportunity through that whole process.
What was your relationship with the market before the role? What was 1992?
Yeah, 92, I still remember it. I still remember what it felt like in my being and my body.
Your first visit.
My first visit.
Yeah.
They say that the sense of smell is this great reminder, and I can
Powerful,
still
right?
Powerful, right?
Smells and music.
Right, exactly. And so 92, I hadn't been with REI long, and I was promoted from Northern California store to a supervisor role in Spokane, Washington. So it was my first move away from
Up to the Northwest.
Yeah. And I came to Seattle for the first time for a retail management training program. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going early.
Gotta go to the market.
I drove over. I'm going early. I'm going to go experience the market. Even before all the digital content, it was known. I'm not sure how it was known to me that I had to go, but it was known. It was in my psyche. And so 92, committed an afternoon and really explored. I love that I did find the Down Under, and I got lost in the Down Under. And then someone had recommended that I dine at Wild Ginger, which at the time was on Western Avenue. And I think at the time, it was the most magical meal I'd had out in my lifetime. And granted, I was early 20s, but still there was the sounds and the tastes and the smells, all of it came together. And it was a love affair. I mean, it was a love at first experience, love at first sight and the rest. And then from Spokane, I had the opportunity with REI to actually live in all four corners of the nation. But with REI headquartered here in the Seattle area, it meant many trips to this region. And so, I left Spokane for Atlanta. I came back and made visits to the market. Then I went to Albuquerque, made visits to market Boston, and so forth. And so the love affair began, and now it's in full force.
And how have you been spending your first few months in the role? How have you been approaching the first 100 days, or however you delineate?
Yeah, I love that question. One of the things I shared with the council and the team and many of the community members is I love Harvard Business Review's. They have a framework around the first 90 days. It's actually a really healthy one, and I've used it anytime I've started something new, whether it's board service or roles. And in that first 90 days, I love this one framework that they call STARS, which is asking where is an organization today? And the acronym stands for Startup, Turnaround, Accelerated Growth, Realignment, or Sustaining Success. And so the beauty was I started asking that question through the final parts of the interview process, and then certainly onboarding. And it was interesting. There was a lot of alignment around this notion that the Pike Place Market PDA is in realignment.
So you were getting a consistent answer.
Answer.
That's a good sign, right?
And it's also where I felt it was, just from my whole process. In realignment, there isn't as much crisis or urgency. And I'll share the perspective around realignment. But that has given me this incredible gift in these first 2 months to truly listen and learn. Just be in community, be present, listen and learn, so that we can take our master plan as an example and we can implement. We can convene the community once again and implement. But I think the beauty about the consistency around realignment was this notion that realignment, because we were truly stepping into a post-pandemic reality, incredible gift. We have just connected with the waterfront in this profound way.
Right, the Overlook had opened a month before your arrival,
Overlook
right?
Had opened in October.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the market not only has a front door, if you think about the public market center sign, the clock and sign, and, Pike Place the street, and otherwise, we've always had that front door, if you will. We now have this incredible, glorious front porch to the bay and the sound and the market front and overlook and the aquarium. And so there's realignment to that. We're opening
Physical
up a new
realignment.
Yes, physical realignment. There's realigning to a master plan. There is realigning to all this incredible work in terms of revitalization of downtown, which I think will be accelerated with World Cup, FIFA World Cup coming, right? There's, there's all these points of realignment, and that we're eager to step into those in a really profound, meaningful way. But again, that gift of we're not in crisis, and I can step into this role and really be listening in a position of, I'm here to listen and I'm here to learn. And from the listening, learning, and building relationship and building community, we're going to do better work. And that notion, the team has heard it so many times, is the value that I'm really guided by is trust. And so listening and learning and building relationship, it's certainly a foundation of trust. And I'm with many others in that notion of progress will move at the speed of trust. So it's so worth spending some of that time.
And I know you've been out intentionally meeting with vendors and tenants and craftspeople and staff and others.
Yes.
I mean, kind of going down a list if I'm right. Or
Yes, I do. I have my list of all of our
trying to get to everybody.
Small businesses, all of our residence buildings, all of our social services. I think I've met a couple thousand people. And I privileged, honor, joy, role of a lifetime. I think I shared that with you previously, and that's only reinforced by actually meeting the community. And what an incredible ecosystem. And at the individual level, like all these folks who are doing this beautiful work, farmers bringing their goods, and craftspeople, making their wares, and fishmongers, like knowing just the quality of those pieces, and produce vendors and shopkeepers and restaurateurs and buskers, and
a lot of complexity underneath all of that with the governance and the rules. And did you appreciate that coming in, of like the level of complexity that produces what we experience that looks so just like happenstance, and this just happens every day, and it's just this beautiful thing that's been around 100 plus years. And
so I did not fully appreciate it, and I did more and more and more so through this interview process. So I knew about the efforts in terms of, in the late 60s and early 70s, a big question about
its
the future of the market. I knew all about that. I was given an incredible blessing of becoming friends with I think he was the executive director in the 80s, Jon Scholes. And in his last 5 years of his life, we became pals. And so I did get a little bit more of that rich history from him. But I didn't fully appreciate it. Certainly more by the time of an offer, and I'd gone deep. I don't know how many times I'd read the charter. And certainly, the elements that show up even in the master plan, and really understanding, so the council is made up of mayoral appointments, council appointments, and constituency appointments. By the time I arrived in the role, I'd gone much deeper. And yet still, I have such a deep appreciation for the level of standards in terms of public meetings, the level of transparency, the level of governance that exists. I kind of love it in terms of that notion of one must be above reproach, right? In just almost everything working in an organization like this. And I love how we're chartered. We're chartered to protect and preserve. We're chartered to grow small businesses. We're chartered to grow the farm program and so many other things. That's pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm. You referenced the master plan earlier, which was completed just before your arrival.
Yes.
What are how would you summarize kind of the bigger moves and it's a 50-year horizon,
it is looking at the next 50 years.
Yeah.
So in 2023, the PDA, obviously the market's been around since 1907 and the lands have been there, unceded Duwamish lands long before that. But so over a century, right, and operating, but the PDA is 51 years. And so this was taking a look ahead, to the next 50. In terms of, I love the structure of the plan in that we have 3 high-level goals, which is ensuring financial sustainability so that we can continue to operate and thrive and serve the community. Secondarily, I think we share this idea of local relevancy, local engagement. Yeah. Just how do we engage our locals? And then thirdly, really the spirit of inclusion. So 3 high-level goals, and then there's 4 strategies. And at the high level on the strategies is strategy 1 is all around Pacific Northwest food life and farm. So those are packaged in a way in terms of strategy 1. We'll actually engage with big parts of our community here soon on that topic. We feel the master plan is like a North Star, beautiful guidance tool, but we are really looking to build out a more detailed implementation plan, and that requires more voices of our community before we do that work at the initiative level. So we're going to step into that right away in February with a session. So that's strategy 1, Pacific Northwest food, life, and farm. Number 2 is all about supporting small businesses. And I'll tell you, I think my team would say, I'm thrilled about all facets of this plan. Really, just this last week, coming to life in terms of some bold ideas around that, around how do we support our small businesses. I think about, listening and learning. Folks are like, okay, Rachel, we're going to step into higher minimum wages. Our retirement of the tip credit.
As of last week, right?
Right. So this is very, very real.
Yeah. And
there's other rising costs, right? Just cost of living, healthcare, and other things. And so big credit to the team that, I'm working with, that we're putting our heads together around pretty bold ideas. And this is based on probably 20 conversations in December with folks about what are the pain points and how can we help. And so more to come on that. But strategy 2 is all about supporting small businesses. And again, I think a fair amount more to come to our entire community in terms of invitations to help this soul of Seattle, this beacon of light. And I think there's so much we can do. The market, we're chartered to where this can't be a second location. We incubate entrepreneurial.
You can start there, but you can't.
You can start there, and so many folks are so brilliant about an idea, a product, a service. Many do not have the chops that one develops as a, really savvy retailer. I was sharing with the team today, I was responsible for leading 160 REI stores. My goodness, by the time someone became a store manager, they knew the ins and outs of a profit and loss statement. They knew everything, about sales and service. They understood, 101, 201, 301 on visual merchandising, right? They understand everything about employee relations. They understood key pieces of marketing and inventory fulfillment, all these things. Well, we have this privilege of incubating small businesses and entrepreneurs. How do we come alongside? How do we come alongside and support all of them? And folks are at very different stages. So that's strategy 2. Strategy 3 is all about the future of capital projects and infrastructure and sustainability. So that's really truly.
How do you take care of all these buildings?
Yes. And how do we secure those resources to take care of all these buildings?
And it's been some time since the last levy that was deployed to
That was 2008.
Yeah, that was a while ago, right?
And the beauty about the mayor at the time, Greg Nichols, when he wrote a letter, one-pager, basically, I think to the city of Seattle and the council and others, he said, we all need to get our minds around that Pike Place Market, PDA, should likely be back in front of the voters every 20 years or so. In that, I think his quote was, we cannot let this jewel, erode to the ravages of time, something like that. I mean, it was more elegant than that, but so we're looking at that. We're looking at all these ways in which we can continue to care for these 9 acres, these 31 buildings. And the way we're structured is I think it's pretty elegant in that we're structured to where the PDA is expected to have enough resources to run the day-to-day operations, right? So we have an incredible security team, maintenance team, facilities team, and beyond those, the rest of the teams are pretty small. We have a incredibly talented 3-person marketing team and a 3-person human resources team and a few people in finance and accounting and, a small commercial team and a incredible program team that is all about our day stall arts, crafts, and farmers. But it's a pretty small team that
you didn't list a big construction team in that.
No,
in that
the
list.
maintenance team has a little bit around some construction know-how, but no, we don't have those pieces, and so we are looking at. Feel privileged to have been in front of a deputy mayor recently, just about like, okay, here's what we're looking at into the future. Very productive conversation. And so that's strategy 3. And then the final strategy 4 is all about external partnerships. It's all about the broader community. And what joy to be, I have 4 meetings this week connected to waterfront. 4.
You got a new neighbor, right?
Yes,
a new front porch.
And we had one yesterday, and then really thrilled to have time with Marshall Foster and with Seattle Center. But Seattle Center is managing the maintenance of the park, and so we're chatting. And then I'm on the steering committee as we arc to the grand opening, and so that's happening on Friday, as is another meeting, I think, at Ivar's. So that strategy 4 is all about those external partnerships, and delighted with the partners that actually are embedded in the market with the friends of the market, the constituency, the Market Historical Commission, and then of course we have our foundation that is really focused on fundraising for social services. And so it's that, but then it's, goodness, this relationship I'm privileged to build with you and the Downtown Seattle Association and Visit Seattle, and the list goes on and on and on with the city and our neighbors and the like. So
and you said you wanted to run a nonprofit in a complex ecosystem. You found it, right?
Yes,
they found you.
I know. I just yes, it's truly pinching myself every day that it could be. When I wrote that, it is a little wild. When I wrote that down, that's what I was looking to do. I don't know that I believed it so much at the moment. And then here I am, and it is a role of a lifetime, and it is such a privilege to serve in this way.
What do you think is most valuable from your long career at REI and a really successful retail space, successful retailer, that you take and can apply to this very different retail environment? And like, what do you, maybe you're still figuring that out in your first couple of months of like what you,
it's interesting. I think there are a handful of things. I think it is helpful having led a really community-centered, purpose-based retailer, in that the community piece,
a co-op,
right? It's a cooperative, right? And so a lot of the spirit of these places is there's a shared spirit in certainly some ways. for sure. But those that we serve and steward, so many are retailers, and really all are, right? Whether you're a fishmonger or a farmer, there is the exchange. There is the selling of something, right? And so many of the challenges that they are to overcome to the next level of success, I've helped to create those conditions for those businesses to thrive. I've created so many of the strategies. I've led almost all the functions that are germane to Pike Place Market businesses. So I think that, much of that, I'm really drawing on so much of my nonprofit board service as well, in terms of, the elements of governance and, in both places, strategic planning and putting the stakeholder and the visitor or the consumer or the human at the center, those you serve at the center of the plans. And so I think those elements are helpful now as well.
So we've been talking about the bigger park
Yes.
that's opening, and parts of it have opened. Victor Steinbrook went through
Yes.
this pretty significant renovation,
Yes.
and I should know the answer to this, but I just haven't been down
Yes.
that way in the last week or so. But what's the current status?
So
Are we close?
Current status is, I think the target is end of Q2,
Okay.
and I may be just off.
To reopen for those.
To reopen.
Yeah, not following
And
along
it
at
is,
home.
it's very close, but there are certainly some work between the parks and the historical commission as it relates to, we still need to complete it in terms of the rehabilitation of the totem poles. And so that is my understanding, and eager, of course,
Yeah,
for us
that's going to
to
be great to have that
just-
connected back to the, back to, for the
Yes.
first time, really, the market front expansion, right? I mean,
Yes.
there's never...
And that's another important partner in terms of external partners is the parks,
Yeah.
because we'll be working with Seattle Center and Waterfront on all aspects of that development, and then a critical partnership with Seattle Parks and Rec as it relates to the stewardship management of Victor Steinbrook Park. And so I, thrilled to, I think it will feel just that much more complete.
Yeah, and help people
all-
find their way both
Yes,
into
yes,
the market, but also
yes.
down to the waterfront.
Exactly.
Are you finding that people that are coming to the market that may not be from Seattle are finding their way? Maybe they didn't know what we've done here with the new waterfront and the new your front porch. Are they finding their way there through
Yes.
the market and the connections?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's, I'm in the market. Right now I'm there 6 days a week because I've committed all my Saturdays. There's no meetings. It is just in the market. And so...
You're just absorbing and talking and listening.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is the witnessing and just,
You're studying the place.
Yes, exactly. It's so powerful how many locals are rediscovering the market by way of Waterfront and Overlook. And so they are coming because they're so inspired by, what they're reading and seeing. And so they're coming, and then, of course, they are making another visit
Yeah.
to the market. And so there's, I think from a local's perspective, pretty remarkable. And then people around the world, like every day, there are so many languages spoken. And I was out there on Saturday, and I headed from our market front onto the Overlook Park and Overlook Walk, and there was a couple that they were in a wedding dress and tuxedo, and I mean it was just like a whole photo shoot, right? Just with that background, and I mean just every day.
Seattle's new Instagram spot.
Oh, completely, without question.
Yeah. I got to ask you about the third rail of Seattle politics, the question of, which has kind of reemerged. I don't know if it ever went away, but shutting down the street to cars.
Yes.
And it seems like this has always been presented as either it's the status quo, how it is and has been for quite some time, or presented as like we're going to get rid of all cars. Nobody can drive down there. How do you think about this question that's been debated in Seattle for so long.
Yeah, I'm actually really happy you asked, just in that I thought it was a simpler problem to solve before I was directly connected to the community and leading the BDA and otherwise. And so, this has been really helpful to spend this much time in conversation, for which part of my curiosity is, what is the perspective of our residents? What's the perspective of our farmers, our produce vendors, our craftspeople, our small, shopkeepers, our restaurants, really the community? What's the perspective? And it's pretty complex. You may be aware of this, but the market has no central loading dock. The most central...
No alleys.
There's no alleys. Right? There's no central loading dock.
No alleys for vehicles. Post alley for pedestrians.
Yes. So the most central loading dock, if you will, is Pike Place, the street. And so every day, it's essential. It is absolutely critical that folks, to set up for the day, just take farmers to set up for the day, they pull their trucks and their vans up and they unload. And that happens every single day. And so that is critical. We need to have access for emergency vehicles. We do have 9 residential buildings. Most serve low-income seniors, and there's a lot of seniors who really rely on having some mobility support, as do a number of our visitors. And so I've gotten to know, like, Mike at Socios, and I've gotten to know Frank at Frank's Produce, and all of our produce vendors really well. And I was there with Frank last week, and sure enough, this woman came up, and she's been shopping there for 42 years. And now she's in her early 80s and shopping with a cane. And so it was interesting because Frank and I were having the conversation about the street, just open conversation. And he's like, Rachel, I need you to meet her. This woman, I think her name was Margaret. He's like, I need you to meet her. And she just let me know, I've been shopping here. It is essential that I can park here and continue to shop after 42 years, right? So we have our visitors, we have our, those we serve in so many ways. And so all to say, I took an interview in November with Puget Sound Business Journal, where I did share that I strongly oppose sweeping changes. And then I shared that again with King 5 this weekend. We are going to do so thoughtfully, and we're going to do so with input from all key stakeholders. And so we will be convening early Q2, probably about 60 individuals on the topic of the street, Pike Place, the street. Councilmember Kettle will be there, SDOT. We will have we'll have fire, we'll have residents, we'll have produce vendors, we'll have farmers, we'll have craftspeople, we'll have small businesses. So I'm probably leaving off a few, but we will have a broad set of the community that, in addition to convening the community on the 4 master plan strategies, we are going to convene specifically on the street, Pike Place, the street. What I can say, too, is this is genuine, my deep appreciation for the care of our community, because it's all coming from a really good place. And had I been asked 2 years ago, Rachel, should Pike Place, the street, be closed? I don't know that I would have just said emphatically yes. I would say, I bet there's some other nuance to this.
Some considerations.
but I think there's deep caring concern in terms of how we, preserve and care for this beacon of light, for the city. And shoot, the reason this came back to the surface is the tragedy in New Orleans.
Yeah, there's a safety issue too versus just
Bourbon Street.
People's desire, right?
Yes,
yeah.
And so, but it is really complex.
Yeah,
and we will do so really thoughtfully. It also gives me a chance to say, I think we have a world-class, remarkable security team. What do? vigilantly concerned about the safety and care of everyone who's connected to the market, everyone who works there, everyone who lives there, and significant concern for everyone who visits.
You got a great team down there.
It is a great team, right? And so we'll convene the community, and we will work on this. We'll work on this. One last thing to say is it has been a working market for over a century, and there have been vehicles moving through like a slow brook for over a century. And so...
Horses before cars.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you think they were debating like getting rid of the horses back then?
Maybe.
Yeah, probably.
It might have been like, got to clean up after them.
Yeah, I'm sure they were.
It's like, smells matter when you're picking your produce, right? Who knows? But I appreciate you asking, and we're here to be this thoughtful stewards, and there are multiple stakeholders in this on this topic.
Well, I think there's many that appreciate the approach you're taking, and it is nuanced, and there's a lot to wrestle with. And
yes.
So get everybody together and
get everyone
listen
together.
And
Yes. So we'll
unpack the complexity.
Other advocacy organizations, of course, they already know they'll be invited.
Yeah.
And
that's good. We're not going to solve it through the newspaper or broadcast news, right?
We won't.
It just seems how this has been talked about for
we won't solve
years.
it. We will not solve it there.
People kind of dig in. And,
one
on either side.
A book that was recommended to me by our foundation is called Community by Peter Block, The Structure of Belonging. And there's a beautiful piece around the art of convening. And we're really, truly stepping into this space of being artful conveners. And the wisdom is in the collective. It's in the community. And so unearth that and then put together really thoughtful plans. That's what we're going to do with master plan. It's what we'll do with the street. It's what we'll do in terms of as we approach a levy. So, yes, here for all of it.
Yeah, that's great. I wanted to ask you about, no, I just lost my train of thought. It'll come to me. Oh, you mentioned the market being a bright spot, which I think is what the Seattle Times headline from a few weeks ago was around their coverage on the pedestrian volumes over the last couple of years. Do their numbers and what they reported sort of track with what you're seeing as far as overall pedestrian volume? And then we were talking earlier about just the relevance of the market to locals. And we saw lots of locals return during the pandemic. And how's the mix of locals to everybody else?
So a few things. Love that piece. I think it really did elevate, beautiful, shine the light on the soul of Seattle, if you will. And on the pedestrian counts, ours show 19 million, more roughly around 19 million. And I've been
annual visitors.
Yes, annual visitors, and I think that's the number. In that, when I was the general manager of the REI's flagship store there in South Lake Union, our visitors roughly around 1.1 million in those last few years that I was a general manager, and I've shared with my team, we easily have 20 times that.
Yeah.
It's just like, and we had fairly sophisticated traffic counting technology with REI, particularly at the end of my time there. So that's impressive. And so the numbers, I think, are a little bit different in terms of some of the other ways that it's measured, but we are also investing in a little bit more traffic counting technology, particularly from Overlook Walk into the market. And so I think what is happening with the development of Waterfront Park and Overlook Walk is that we had more visitors, local visitors at the holiday. Because I think, for example, when we had our magic in the market, and then we also had the figgy pudding caroling contest benefit social services, this is what I was hearing from the team. And I know it's anecdotal. It's not backed by a ton of data at this point. But a lot of folks, that event was happening, and it was the first time that they were visiting the waterfront park, and particularly Overlook Walk. And so we have a lot of anecdotal evidence of that. And so that meant locals were coming at a time when they knew it was to be fairly busy. And so one of the things we really want to do is move beyond just the shoulder seasons for when locals feel like it's their market.
Yeah, they can return.
And this is the beauty about the revitalization of downtown, too. I want everyone to be there for their produce and, for their proteins and, for the restaurant experience and, for all their gift giving, self gifts and, otherwise, and just all that we offer. And so I think we're starting to see some of that evidence. And we're really thinking about programming. Last year we had Produce on Pike that happened on Wednesdays once a month for a handful of months. That's something we're going to build upon. And so, more to come in terms of ways in which we really light up the market for locals.
That's great.
Year round.
Yeah. I mean, as a downtown resident, I love it and use it. And
Yes.
I know I'm not alone. And as other residents in the city, and a lot of people that got reacquainted with the market during COVID, because it was kind of the only spot in downtown that you could sort of safely take part in and enjoy. So I hope people remember that and keep coming back.
Right.
We have a couple of standard questions, Rachel. One is, what was your first job?
So my first job where I actually received a paycheck, just that had tax pieces. So I was 16, and I don't know why I was in such a hurry, but I was born in Berkeley, California, but when I was 5, my dad found a job that was listed in the Wall Street Journal that had us move up to Weed, California. And so living in Weed, California, and just kind of in a hurry to get on with life. So I took a California high school proficiency exam at 16, and so I started community college at 16. And so my first paid job with a pay stub was a office assistant at the College of the Siskiyous. So that's the first time I was 16, and taking my general ed credits at community college because I was such a hurry to get on with life. But that was my first job, and I loved it. It was, I got to organize things, and it was an office setting. And
it's funny, when we're younger, we want time to move faster, and then when we're older, we want it to slow down. Right?
Oh my goodness! And I am, I'm taking some of what I learned about to my kiddos, where, my daughter headed off today for 4.5 months in Ireland, study abroad. But I've been so encouraging of them of, you don't need to be in the hurry that I was in. And I don't regret
to get it done.
I don't regret it for a second. I mean, my life is so blessed and it's been so beautiful. And yet, there's a little wisdom in there with my daughters saying, just marinate in it, just enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't have to be in the same hurry I was in. But that was my first job.
And at community college at 16. That's great.
Yes.
And then our final question, you kind of already answered it, I guess, but maybe you can go to a little more detail. But your perfect Saturday in Seattle, and you're at work, but you're kind of in a different.
Yes.
It's a different mode you're in when you're
exactly
at work on that Saturday. It sounds like.
I would say those are my perfect Saturdays because they've just been such gifts. I will add a little bit because I've restarted in the new year my yoga practice. And so the perfect Saturday does start with very early morning yoga. And so that's really been great to just get back to my 4 to 5 days of yoga at a great studio. It's 90 to 95 degrees, vinyasa, so really starting the day with yoga and, really good coffee. And then at this point in time, it's glorious to be in the market.
Yeah, you're off to the market.
I'm off to the market. and I don't want to be anywhere else in the world.
Do you envision a Saturday where you're not at the market all day?
Yes, for sure.
Giving
for
yourself
sure. For sure. That's coming. And folks have asked too. And it's like, I'll definitely have Saturdays at the market every month. But there's going to come this point where my long list of have I met someone in every business? Have I met all the residents? I will be through that. And I think establish some relationship and community and rapport and hopefully a little trust. And then, it'll be on to stepping maybe back into my, REI days a little bit and a little bit more of the exploration out of the urban core and, paddling and skiing and those kind of things, which, I'm fitting in here and there at this point in time. But, still am fed by my outdoor life and travel. I'll be, of course, making a little trip to Ireland in April to see my oldest kiddo. But I love that question. And right now, this is dreamy to, pinch myself as I wander around the market and reflect on, the humbling honor of serving in this way.
Well, pretty great. You're taking the time to do all that listening and engagement. I think it's easy to get in these roles, and then you kind of quickly maybe get your head down on a lot of the details and feel the pressure to, just make sure everything's operating as it should without taking the time to go out and learn and listen and be curious.
Yeah, that's, be curious, be kind. It's certainly guides me on Saturdays. I'm really blessed with an amazing team. And so therefore I don't need to do their jobs, right?
Yeah.
They're giving me incredible freedom to have the time and space to really engage and learn.
Well, thank you for making time to do this. And it's
thank you.
Great to get to know you and look forward to working with you and partnering with you to make the city and the city within the city spectacular.
Yes.
And so much going on around the market.
Yeah.
And in the market this year, it's gonna, if locals aren't coming down yet, they with the frequency that they should, they are gonna have plenty more reasons with all that's coming this year.
Yes.
So
thank you for this time. It's incredible. Thanks for all you're doing through DSA, and I love this partnership. There'll be more.
Sounds great.
Great. Thank you.
Well, hope you enjoyed my conversation with Rachel. Appreciate her making the time to come on Seattle City Makers. And do yourself a favor, if you haven't been to the market in some time, get down there. It's such a terrific place and a little easier to access this time of year. So take advantage of your market, the Pike Place Market. I want to close out with a recommendation of something you got to check out here in downtown Seattle, and want to highlight the upcoming museum month. All month long in February, you get half off admission to more than 20 top museums in the downtown area when you book a downtown hotel. So it's a great deal, a great time to come downtown, make a staycation, stay the night, get to a museum, go over to the market, have yourself a delightful weekend in downtown for a great deal. And you can find out all the details at seattlemuseummonth.com. Well, thanks everybody for joining us on this episode of Seattle City Makers, presented by the Downtown Seattle Association, with support from James Cito and production by Spark Creative.